Cześć, dzień dobry. Dzisiaj moim gościem będzie Luis Veloso, fotograf, który przeprowadził się w 2010 roku z Hiszpanii. Luis jest fotografem i filmowcem, ma za sobą dość długą już i urozmaiconą ścieżkę kariery. Znamy się stąd, że kiedy ja przyjechałem do Anglii, to na początku szukałem pracy na wszelkich możliwych frontach i poznaliśmy się na jednym z takich niewielkich wydarzeń networkingowych. I Luis był pierwszą osobą, która dała mi jakąkolwiek pracę tutaj w Anglii. Byłem na kilku planach zdjęciowych jego asystentem, więc nosiłem torby i ustawiałem lampy, co było, muszę przyznać, bardzo przyjemnym doświadczeniem, ponieważ nie ciążyła na mnie żadna odpowiedzialność poza taką, żeby nie zgubić i nie zniszczyć całkiem wielkiej torby ze sprzętem, co nie było takie znowu trudne. Teraz przełączymy się na język angielski, ale nie bójcie się, pod spodem będą napisy z tłumaczeniem. Hi Luis, thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Jacob.
What I know about you is that your career path is long and with many adventures along the way, because you started to work as a graphic designer and then you took up photography and then you worked as a videographer, and I think now you're mostly a videographer now, right?
When I was young, I have a few jobs, and then one of them was like in a company where I start to touch computers and things, and because I didn't know how to use a computer. And from there, I get interest in graphic design, and then I went to Alicante, that is a bigger city because I'm from a small town in the south of Alicante. And there I studied there graphic design, and then I moved to Barcelona. I was working there as a photographer for few magazines, and then I specialized in photojournalism and in product. What I did a little bit fashion also. There I was working for few magazines, just like they were like erotic magazines. There wasn't fashion there involved at all, but. The crisis arrived in Spain in 2008, like in a lot of places in this planet. In that time, UK was one of the countries that economically was right. I came here and I started to work as an assistant for a photographer. He didn't pay me because sometimes when you work for a photographer as an assistant, it's for free. And then he didn't pay me for a long time, and I said, oh, right, here I need to try to find the way how to get money because I'm not gonna get money with this guy. And then I start to film with my camera that was like a Canon 5D II. I start to film the making of his suits. I take all these videos from the making of, and then I was selling to his clients. And then there I start to get money. I say, all right, video is nice. And I start to get interested in video, and now I'm doing more video.
When did you start taking pictures on film?
Basically, when I studied in Barcelona, I studied with film. And in this year, just the digital generation just emerged, all right? They was teaching both. They was teaching you how to shoot in film and also how to edit in Photoshop. But in the school, we didn't touch digital because they didn't have a lot of cameras, just Photoshop.
I took up film photography, during this modern renaissance of film photography like a few years ago, and for you film photography is like a parallel path. It was with you from the beginning.
To be honest, I would like to follow this parallel journey like a more consecutive, but as it's very expensive, or you have to spend a lot of time because also I like to shoot and develop. It's like because for me it's everything. It's part of the process, I also hate the scanner. It takes too much time, too much. And then it's basically this device, all right, that you put the film from here, and then because this is made for 6x6, all right.
Okay.
This is 6x6. You see the square here, right?
Yeah.
And then this is like a DIY adapter also. Everything is DIY. And then what happened here is I put the flash in that side. I put the flash here, and then the film here, and then you shoot with the camera from here, and every time they shoot, poof, picture, move, pitch, and it's so fast.
Do you use the Negative Lab Pro?
Yeah, it's make everything a lot faster, because before I have to do it in reverse, in there, and so, and then I bought the plugin. It's really, really worth it.
You said, I think, on your second year of university, you went to Africa to film, to do a whole photographic project on a 6x6 camera, right?
Yeah, was like I went with another photographer, with my classmate. He's called Arnaud Blanche. He's a very good photographer. And we went together to Africa with ONG. And this ONG, we went there to help people with poliomyelitis. The ONG went there to make these prosthetics for people that need it. And then we went there to help them, and at the same time to make pictures. And then what I have is like a lot portraits or people that has poliomyelitis. And yes, and they were shooting 6x6 with a Rolleiflex camera that I bought in that time, and I still keeping it because I really love it.
Years after you were taking pictures in Africa, those portraits of people with polio, you started another, like a photography project. You were taking portraits of people in London with your 6x6 Rolleiflex, right?
I decided to go outside to the street in East London because I used to live in this area, and then take a portrait of whatever person that catch my eye. Every time that I spot somebody, I went there and I'm doing this project about portraits in the street. Yeah, no problem. To be honest, I don't remember anyone to say no. I don't remember. Because as I told you before, this camera is kind of unusual, and it's beautiful also, and then it's kind of has character, and everybody gets impressed with the camera and say, oh, nice camera, blah, blah, blah. And then this is a good point to start when you talk with a strange person. And then in that point they are in a positive state, and they always say yes, because it's weird, but it's the first 10 seconds of the conversation with the person is gonna make you take the picture or not. When the project was based in, I take the picture and I make a copy myself with enlarger, it was a black and white, and then send a copy to them, to each one of them. Yeah. And everybody was happy with the picture, basically. Yeah. And me too, because for me it was like was very excited, to take a picture, printing, send to them, and later they call you or send you a text. I love it, blah, blah, blah. My man is so happy with the portrait, blah, blah. This is good. This gives you more energy to keep going,
Beside those portraits, those street portraits of different people in London, at some point you took up also like a, let's say, regular street photography, so catching situations on street. And I remember you telling me the starting point was you finding a Rollei 35S in a thrift shop for £4.50. I just checked on eBay and they are now for like 150 or 300 pounds, so it was a bargain. Could you please tell me more about how did you start with street photography?
When I used to live in London, I have access to a dark room that you hire, and then you have an enlarger there, and then you can print every picture yourself. And then what happened is, when I moved to Brighton, because I get another job there, I didn't have this facility. And then for that, in the beginning in Brighton, I didn't take too many pictures, until one day I went to a charity shop and I found this camera, a Rollei S black edition, that is even more weird, and was £4.50. And I said, oh my God, this is what happened, what's wrong with that? And then I took the camera, I said, I don't care, for £4.50 I can put it as a decoration, And then I took it to the till, and the guy said, Rolleiflex, I think this label before was so expensive. I said, I don't know, maybe. I have no idea what is that. And then I bought the camera and I arrived home and I open it and I start to use it and I get in love with it. But it's so tricky, this camera. It's very tricky because there is no, it's no range finder. And then what happens is you have the finder just more or less for you to let you know how you let you know the composition, but you have to make focus by meters, you know. And then
the sound system.
a sound system, yeah. And then for me it was like a very hard training because obviously you shoot, and when you arrive home you realize that half of them are out of focus. And then I started to practice for myself. I bought this in Amazon. They sell this small laser tape measure, and then I was practicing at home all the time, sitting. So I'm gonna try to figure out where is the distance in between here and the sofa, and then I said, okay, 3 meters, and then later check it. Oh fuck, no, it's 2.5, and then all the time practicing just to do this, and then just with this silly game. I start to control this camera better, and then go faster and do stuff. But in some point I say, okay, I want to do a picture with another, and then buy another and another and another. And now I'm using the Yashica T3. But what I love this camera is this.
There is a top viewfinder.
It's a viewfinder that you can take picture like that. You can put the camera in the floor and compose with this, and that is very practical because it gives you like a point of view that usually you don't do. Because usually if you want to do this kind of low point of view, you have to go to the floor or looks like a very awkward, you know. Yeah, this is one. This is the one that I usually have in my pocket all the time.
Do you draw attention less to yourself when you're taking a picture, looking at it like that?
Yeah. I mean, when I take picture with this, I mean, I don't have any problem going and take a picture in front of somebody. I don't have this problem. But for me, if I want to do like a low point of view, and what I like is also the flash.
Okay.
Yeah, because obviously now I'm using more these ones. That's like a SLR, all right? But I don't have flash, you have to make focus, make clack, I mean, like have a lot of noise. It's a different way to work, yeah. And also I have another Canonet that is a rangefinder, and this is nice because it's so silent. It's tiny and it's very silent.
You said that you have no problem with taking a picture like a street photo, like in front of someone. You're not afraid of people on the street, right?
Well, I mean, I'm afraid, but sometimes when you're gonna take the picture, you think, oh I do it, or I don't get it. You know, and then you also have to approach in a positive way. You know, you go there, you take the picture. Sometimes they're looking at you and say, "What's going on?" And then you have to smile, no? And be positive and say something positive to them, like, I like your jacket, it's for the reason I take the picture, or you like something that has happened there. And sometimes you get trouble if you find the wrong person. But to be honest, I'm so happy that 99.9% everybody is so cool.
And I noticed on your Instagram feed that you have quite a lot of pictures of people and different situations, like those airplanes flying, over London, I think, or people in certain positions doing something, like this guy doing some exercise, I think, on Brighton seafront. Yes. How do you find those situations?
I found this situation in different doing different activities. For example, the guy doing exercise like upside down, I don't know how you call it. I remember I was with my dog, just working with him, because what happened is I have a dog and then I have to work him a lot, and then he is the responsible for me to take a lot of pictures because he took me out home every day, few times, and then always every time that I go out with him, I have my camera with me, and walk with the dog is make you encounter a lot of things and a lot of lonely people too, because when you go with a dog Everybody's friendly and talk with you. But for example, if you see in the beginning of my Instagram, I have a lot of pictures from London. And then when I used to work in London, I ride a lot a bicycle. I went by bicycle everywhere. And then every time that I see a place that's with something interesting, and then I stop, take a picture and go. And all the time like that. And then, for example, in London, I was obsessive with workers, people working in the street. But you know that in street photography, there are these kind of two styles, no? One style is haunting, and it's basically all the time predicting what's gonna happen and searching. Like all the time, you look like a weirdo. My girlfriend all the time, well, my wife now, is, oh my God, yeah, it's just haunting again. And then you don't pay attention to them. You are just focusing to see what you find, no? Or another technique is fishing. Fishing is when you see a place that you like, and you say, I like this background, and then I'm gonna wait here for something to happen. But for fishing, you need to be very patient, because you can stay 10 minutes or you can stay hours. It depends what you want.
When did you start this Instagram channel, Analog Street Photo? Was it long ago?
Not really, probably a year and a half or 2 years ago. Yeah, I don't have a lot of followers. No one know me, but it's fine. It's fun. I really enjoy it, because for me, street photography is a game, and I like to play it. Yeah, and obviously, when you do this kind of things, you like the people see and give comments, because it's good that the people comment your work, because it's helping you to improve. And I think social media is good for feedback.
Okay.
It's for that reason I make the channel, just to try to improve a little bit my.
Your hat with the logo helps you with street photos.
I have the logo here because when I encounter a lot of people in the street, or I take a picture. For example, I take a picture of somebody in the street and say, hey, what is this about? Hey, where are you gonna post it? Because every time that you take a picture, people already know that you're gonna post it in some place, and then my English is not so good. And then sometimes I try to explain, hey, analog street photography. What? Analog? Okay. And then I said, here. And then it's the faster way to communicate with them. Because sometimes when you are outside and you have 2 hours or 3 hours to take picture, you don't want to talk with people a lot. You actually want to go and take picture, and then it's here, right now, bye, see you.
Which films do you use for street photo or for photography, and for 35 and for 120 or 6x6?
Usually I use the cheaper film I found in internet, because every film has his own color character, all right? But when you scan it, you know that you can tweak these things, and then you can get like a cheap film. But if you want to pretend that it's a portrait, you can do it, you know? This is the thing. And then for me, as long as it's not very noisy, it's fine. And then I use whatever cheap film I find on internet. But now, as the film are very, very expensive, I decide to get like a motion picture. It's called, the one that I got is Kodak Vision 3. And then you buy like a reel of 120 meters that, as you calculate, you can get in every reel, I think is in between 80 and 90 rolls. And then when you calculate, it's a lot cheaper than buy the film now, because it's too expensive for me. And also I develop myself at home, because it's cheaper to develop at home than send to the lab. I buy second-hand canister that you buy on internet. Yeah, I show you one. Here. Basic, you go to or in eBay you can buy it, or even in labs they sell you. Because what happened with this canister, you buy the normal canister, all right, you buy the normal one, and then what happened is still have this bit here that you attach the film here with tape or whatever, and then you roll in, and that's it, and it's ready to work. Yeah, because the one that you use, you say, you have to disassemble this and then you put inside. But it's simple to get the film here, put tape and go in. Sellotape, not duct tape, sellotape, right?
Okay.
And then I use this, and then you buy this, I don't know. The other day I bought 25 in, I don't know, so £8, something like that.
Okay.
There is a lot of ways to make everything cheaper.
Zapraszam Was do obserwowania Luisa na różnych mediach społecznościowych, do obejrzenia jego portfolio, bo jest tam naprawdę dużo świetnych zdjęć. Linki będą w opisie i pewnie tutaj na ekranie też się właśnie pojawiają. Mam nadzieję, że ten odcinek pozwolił Wam poznać trochę nowej twórczości. Dzięki i do zobaczenia następnym razem.